The Street Challenge. The night in Hong Kong was humid, the air heavy with the smell of burning oil and spices from the street stalls. Bruce Lee walked with light, almost dancing steps, as if the asphalt beneath his feet were a tatami. He had just left the training studio, where he had spent hours perfecting every movement, every breath. For him, fighting was not just a confrontation, it was a dance, an expression of fluidity and precision. It was then that he saw him. A tall, muscular man, with scars on his face and a look that brimmed with arrogance. He was standing in the middle of the sidewalk, blocking the path, surrounded by two companions who laughed like hyenas. The guy was known in the city's alleys as the Hammer, a street fighter who had gained fame by breaking bones and humiliating opponents. They said he had never been defeated. "You're Bruce Lee, aren't you?" The man growled, spitting on the ground. "I heard you think you're the best. Let's see if it really is." Bruce stopped. There was no tension in his shoulders, no anger in his eyes. Just a deep calm, like the surface of a lake before a stone is thrown. "If you want to fight, fight," he said simply. The Hammer frowned, expecting more. An insult, an elaborate challenge, anything that justified his fury. But Bruce just stared at him, motionless, as if time around them had stopped. "So it's going to be like this?" The man laughed, nervously. "All good. I'll show you what real pain is." He advanced. Bruce didn't move. At the last moment, when the Hammer's fist was already cutting through the air towards his face, something happened. A blur. A dry sound, like a cracking whip. And then, silence. The Hammer froze mid-swing, eyes wide. A trickle of blood ran from his nose, and he staggered back, as if he had been hit by an invisible train. His knees buckled, and he fell face first onto the ground, unconscious before he even touched the asphalt. The two companions were paralyzed. One of them swallowed hard, his closed fists shaking. Bruce looked at them, his expression serene. "Anyone else?" The men exchanged looks and, without saying a word, helped their friend to get up, or rather, to drag him away. The Hammer woke up minutes later, confused, with his head throbbing, not understanding how a single second had changed everything. Bruce continued on his way, as if nothing had happened. For him, it was not a victory. It had been just one answer, the right answer, at the right time. And so, another legend was born on the streets of Hong Kong. The weight of legend. Bruce didn't look back. The night wind carried the smell of burning oil and salt air, mixed with the sour sweat of the men he had just left behind. His steps were light, almost floating, but inside, something was eating at him. It wasn't pride. It wasn't relief. It was the certainty that, now, there would be no turning back. The streets of Kowloon were already murmuring his name before he even reached the alley where his master, old Wong, was waiting for him. The man was sitting on a chipped wooden bench, smoking a slow-burning herbal cigarette, as if time was in no hurry. His eyes, wrinkled like ancient parchment, fixed on Bruce as he turned the corner. "You made noise," Wong said, emotionlessly. Bruce stood before him, hands still slightly shaking. Not from fear, but from the adrenaline that refused to leave him. "They left me no choice." Wong let out a puff of smoke that coiled in the air like a snake. "There is always a choice. You chose the shortest path." Bruce gritted his teeth. I knew what that meant. The old man wasn't just talking about the fight. He was talking about the code, the same one he had sworn to follow years ago, when he was still a boy with bloody fists and hateful eyes. Never use more force than necessary. Never let pride speak louder than reason. "They were going to kill the boy," Bruce said, his voice low. "And now?" Wong tilted his head. "How many more will come after you? How many will want to prove that they are better than Martello? How many will want your name?" Bruce didn't respond. It didn't need to. They both knew the answer. The hunt begins. 3 days later, the first challenge arrived. A man named Jade Blade, a Muay Thai fighter who had defeated 3 local champions in a row, appeared at the door of Bruce's small studio, where he taught children how to defend themselves. I didn't say anything. He just stood there, with his arms crossed, his body covered in scars that told stories of battles that Bruce didn't want to hear. I heard you're fast, Jade Blade said, his voice slurred like a blade on stone. I want to see. Bruce looked at the children, who watched with wide eyes. One of them, a boy no more than 10 years old, tugged at his sleeve. Sifu, what do we do? Bruce took a deep breath. I couldn't fight there. Not in front of them. Not today, he said, turning to the intruder. If you want to see me fight, go to the pier. At midnight. Jade Blade smiled, showing yellowed teeth. I'll be there. The pier and the blood. The location was perfect. Isolated, dark, with the sound of waves crashing against the rotting wooden pillars. Bruce arrived first, barefoot, his hands empty. I didn't need weapons. Never needed it. Jade Blade appeared punctually, accompanied by 2 men carrying iron bars. They weren't just spectators. They were a guarantee that if Bruce won, he wouldn't make it out alive. No rules, Jade Blade said, rolling her shoulders. Only one of us is leaving. Bruce didn't respond. He just positioned himself, his feet firmly on the wet ground, his eyes fixed on his opponent. The fight started even before the first punch was thrown. Jade Blade charged like a bull, his fists spinning in low, brutal blows. Bruce dodged the first, the second, but the third hit him in the side, knocking the air out of him. He staggered, but didn't fall. Instead, he used the momentum of his strike to spin and land a roundhouse kick that caught his opponent on the chin. The man fell to his knees, spitting blood. But he didn't give up. The accomplices advanced with iron bars. Bruce jumped back, avoiding the first blow, but the second hit him in the thigh, making him scream. The pain was like fire, but he used it. When one of the men raised the bar for another attack, Bruce grabbed his wrist, twisted it until he heard the bone snap, and threw him against the other. Jade Blade stood up, eyes bloodshot with hatred. You're good, he growled. But it's not invincible. Bruce wiped the blood from his lip. No one is. The man advanced again, this time with a knife hidden up his sleeve. Bruce saw the gleam of steel too late. The blade cut into his arm, tearing the skin. He retreated, but Jade Blade didn't stop. Blow after blow, the knife cutting through the air, seeking flesh. Bruce blocked 1, 2, 3 attacks, but the fourth hit him in the shoulder. The pain was searing. He tripped, falling backwards onto the wet dock. Jade Blade raised his knife, ready for the final blow. He finished. Bruce looked up at the man who was smiling with victory on his lips. Then, with a quick movement, he grabbed a handful of wet sand and threw it into his opponent's eyes. Jade Blade shouted, bringing his hands to his face. Bruce wasted no time. He jumped up and landed a precise kick on the man's throat, who fell to his knees, choking. Before his accomplices could react, Bruce took them down with quick, brutal blows, a punch to the solar plexus, an elbow to the temple, a kick to the groin. When he finished, the 3 were on the floor, groaning. Bruce took a deep breath, feeling the blood drain from the cuts. He looked at Jade Blade, who was coughing, trying to catch his breath. You could have killed me, Bruce said, his voice calm. But he didn't kill it. Why? The man spat out blood. Because you're not like them. You fight with honor. Bruce nodded. Then go. And tell others I'm not a trophy. Jade Blade staggered to his feet and disappeared into the night. The price of peace. The following days were silent. The streets of Hong Kong stopped whispering about him. The challenges stopped. But Bruce knew it wouldn't last. A week later, Wong called him. You won, the old man said, sitting on his usual bench. But at what cost? Bruce didn't respond. I knew what he meant. Each fight left marks. Not just in the body, but in the soul. What do you want me to do? Bruce asked finally. For me to stop? That I let them keep hurting people? Wong sighed. No. I want you to understand that true strength is not in winning. It's knowing when not to fight. Bruce looked at his hands, marked by scars old and new. What if I don't know? Wong smiled sadly. Then you will learn. Or you'll die trying. The last challenge. It came in the form of an invitation. A black envelope, delivered by a silent courier, with an address and a time. Bruce knew what it meant. Everyone knew. It was the Dragon Club, a secret society of fighters that controlled the martial arts underworld in Hong Kong. They didn't accept defeat. And someone had told them about the man who had humiliated the Hammer and defeated Jade Blade. Bruce went. The place was an abandoned warehouse, lit by torches that cast dancing shadows on the walls. In the center, an improvised ring, surrounded by men with impassive faces. And in the middle of it, a fighter that Bruce recognized instantly. The Iron Dragon. A huge man, with muscles that seemed carved from stone, and a reputation for never being defeated. His eyes, cold as steel, fixed on Bruce as soon as he entered. You're the man making the noise, the Iron Dragon said, his voice deep like distant thunder. Bruce got into the ring. I am. The dragon smiled. Then let's see if you deserve this noise. There was no count. There were no rules. Just two men and the sound of fists hitting flesh. The Iron Dragon was strong. Stronger than anyone Bruce had ever faced. His blows were like hammers, capable of breaking bones. Bruce dodged, blocked, counterattacked, but the man seemed immune to the pain. With each blow that Bruce landed, the dragon laughed, as if he was having fun. You're fast, he growled, landing a punch on Bruce's stomach that made him double over. But speed doesn't beat strength. Bruce coughed, tasting blood. Then why are you sweating? The Iron Dragon growled and charged forward again. This time, Bruce didn't dodge. Instead, he let the blow come, using the impact to spin and land a kick to his opponent's temple. The man staggered, but did not fall. You're good, the dragon admitted, wiping the blood from his lip. But you're no match for me. Bruce knew it was true. The man was a machine. But he also knew he couldn't lose. Not there. Not at that moment. Then, when the dragon advanced again, Bruce did something he had never done before. He backed away. Not out of fear. But for strategy. The Iron Dragon frowned in confusion. Bruce continued backing away, until his back touched the ring ropes. The man smiled, thinking he had one. Now you are going to die. He charged forward, fists raised for the final blow. Bruce waited. He waited until the last second. Then, when the dragon was close enough, he reached down, grabbed the man's legs, and threw him over his shoulder with a perfect judo move. The Iron Dragon fell with a crash, the impact making the ring shake. Before he could get up, Bruce was on top of him, knees pressing into his arms, a punch poised for the finishing blow. Surrender, Bruce said, panting. The Iron Dragon glared at him, eyes burning with hatred. Never. Bruce hesitated. I didn't want to kill him. But I couldn't let him get up either. So instead of punching him, he stood up. Then fight again, he said, extending his hand. But this time, without hate. The Iron Dragon remained motionless for a long moment. Then, slowly, he accepted Bruce's hand and stood up. The men around the ring murmured in disbelief. No one had defeated the Iron Dragon. And yet, there he was, standing without a single broken bone. The leader of the Dragon Club, a man in a white suit and a sharp smile, approached. You're different, he said. Maybe it's time we had someone like you on our side. Bruce looked at him, then at the Iron Dragon, who nodded respectfully. No, Bruce said finally. I don't want to be part of this. The leader raised an eyebrow. So what do you want? Bruce took a deep breath. I want people to stop fighting. I want the streets to be safe. I want children to not have to learn to defend themselves before they learn to read. The leader laughed. That's naive. Maybe, Bruce admitted. But it's what I want. The leader studied him for a moment, then shrugged. All good. But know one thing, if you are not with us, you are against us. Bruce didn't say anything. He just stepped down from the ring and left the warehouse, leaving behind the sound of crackling torches and the weight of a new enemy. The path forward. The weeks that followed were of relative peace. Bruce went back to teaching, went back to training, went back to living. But I knew it wouldn't last. One night, as he walked through the neon-lit streets, a car stopped beside him. The window rolled down, revealing the smiling face of the Dragon Club leader. You have a choice, Bruce, he said. Join us, or disappear. Bruce looked at him, then at the surrounding streets, full of life and movement. I'm not leaving, he said, calmly. And I'm not joining you. The leader sighed. Then you will die. The car sped off, leaving Bruce alone on the sidewalk. He knew it was true. I knew that the Dragon Club did not forgive betrayals. He knew that, sooner or later, they would come after him. But he also knew he couldn't run away. So instead of running, he did what he always did. He waited. And when they came, a dozen men, armed with knives and chains, he was ready. The fight was brutal. Bloody. But in the end, only one man was left standing. Bruce looked at the bodies around him, feeling the weight of each life he had taken. It wasn't a victory. It was just survival. And then, as the sun began to rise over Hong Kong, he knew his legend had come to an end. Because legends don't last forever. They just pave the way for something new. And so, with the blood still fresh on his hands and his heart heavy, Bruce Lee, the man who had defied the underworld, disappeared into the shadows of the city that never sleeps. Not as a hero. Not as a villain. But as a man who had done what needed to be done. And that, in the end, was enough. The last dragon. Dawn in Hong Kong did not bring peace. Just the smell of gunpowder and burning flesh, mixed with the salt of the port. Bruce wiped his hands on his torn shirt, his swollen knuckles throbbing. Every breath was a reminder, he was still alive. And that, now, was a problem. The bodies scattered throughout the alley weren't just those of hired mercenaries. Among them, he recognized the face of an old acquaintance, Lau, the head of the triad who had controlled opium trafficking in poor districts for years. The man who, months ago, had vowed to kill him after Bruce destroyed one of his distribution routes. Not out of heroism. For revenge. For wounded pride. But Lau was not the real enemy. He was just a pawn. Bruce knew this because, among the dead, he found a business card. A simple rectangle of black paper, with a golden character, dragon. The symbol of the organization that operated in the shadows, above the triads, above the police, above everything. They didn't just want to kill him. They wanted to erase it. As they had done to others who dared to challenge their dominance. They were already hunting him before he even knew they existed. The safe apartment in Kowloon was small, damp, with thin walls that let in the noise of neighbors fighting and the crying of a baby upstairs. Bruce locked the door with a chair, even though he knew it wouldn't do any good if they really wanted to get in. He sat on the floor, leaning against the wall, and took the knife from the holster in his boot. The blade was chipped, stained red. He twirled it between his fingers, watching the dim light from the lamp reflect off the steel. There were two options, flee or fight. Running away meant leaving Hong Kong. Disappear in Macau, in the Philippines, maybe even return to the United States. But wherever he went, they would find him. Men like Drageo didn't forget. They didn't forgive. Fighting meant dying. But not before taking some of them with you. The informant was a thin man with rat eyes and rotten teeth. His name was Wong, and he smelled like old fish. Bruce found him at a karaoke bar in the Mongkok district, where loud music drowned out conversation and neon lights disguised the blood. They're gathered at the old port warehouse, Wong whispered, his fingers trembling holding a glass of cheap baijiu. Tomorrow at midnight. The Dragon Chief himself will be there. Bruce didn't ask how Wong knew this. He didn't ask what he wanted in return. He just nodded and slid an envelope with money across the table. If you're lying, he said, his voice low, almost a growl, I'll come back here and rip out your tongue. Wong swallowed and said nothing. The warehouse was a decaying concrete structure with broken windows and graffiti-covered walls. The high tide lapped against the rusty pillars, and the smell of oil and salt filled the air. Bruce arrived early, climbing the side of the building onto the roof. From there, he had a clear view of the main hall. They were more than I expected. Men in black suits, armed with automatic pistols. Others, with scars and cold eyes, carrying curved knives. In the center, sitting on a wooden chair like a throne, a man with a smooth face and a calculated smile. The Dragon Boss. He wore a jade ring on his little finger, the same symbol engraved on the card. Li Junfan, said the boss, as if savoring the name. Or should I call him Bruce? After all, that's how the world knew him. Bruce didn't respond. Just watched. You destroyed our operations. He killed our men. He interfered in businesses that were not his. The chief tilted his head. Why? Because someone had to, Bruce said finally. The chief laughed, a dry, humorless sound. And now? Did you come here to die as a martyr? Bruce jumped off the roof. The fight was quick. Faster than it should be. He broke the first man's neck before the others realized he was there. The knife found the throat of a second. A spinning kick took down a third. But there were many. And they were prepared. A bullet tore through his shoulder. Another, your thigh. He fell, blood running between his fingers, the taste of copper in his mouth. The Dragon Chief approached, the pistol pointed at his forehead. You fought well, said the chief. But in the end, everyone falls. Bruce smiled, his teeth red. Not today. And then, with the last breath of strength, he grabbed the chief's wrist and twisted. The crack was loud. The pistol fired, but the bullet went wide. Before the others could react, Bruce plunged the knife into the chief's chest, stabbing it all the way to the hilt. The man looked at him in surprise, as if he couldn't believe someone would dare. How? He whispered. Bruce pulled out the knife and let the body fall. Because legends don't die, he said, panting. They just transform. They found him at dawn. Bruce Lee's body was lying on the warehouse floor, surrounded by the corpses of the Dragon's men. The police arrived first, then the reporters, then the onlookers. Someone took a photo. Another whispered that he had fought to the end. But when the sun fully rose over Hong Kong, no one was talking about Bruce Lee the fighter anymore. They talked about Bruce Lee, the ghost. Because, in the months that followed, men began to disappear. Triad heads. Corrupt police officers. Men in suits who thought they were above the law. And in each scene, left over the bodies, there was a black card with a golden ideogram. The dragon had been reborn. And this time, there was no one to stop him.